Just kidding. All right. Welcome, everyone. Happy New Year to the Hydrogen Working Group. Since we didn't meet in January, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Give folks one more minute to get on here. Appreciate you all being here on time.
And reminder, I'm muting folks as they're coming on because we have such a big group, but feel free to jump in, unmute yourself if you would like to chime in.
Excellent. I was looking for JR to regale us with a bad dad joke. I don't see him.
Oh, the role he has at the beginning here.
That's right. That's right. Okay. All right. Well, my clock says 11:31 and we've got 30 participants on board. So let's get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Erin Whitney. I'm the director of the Arctic Energy Office at the Department of Energy. And this is our February meeting of the Alaska Hydrogen Working Group. It's awesome to see such a robust turnout. I see old faces, I see new faces. So looking forward to getting to know some of the new folks here on board. And then also today's speaker is Mr. Brodie Chalmers from ATCO with some really exciting news and developments out of Canada around some of their hydrogen project development. So Paul McKinley and I had a chance to talk with one of Brodie's colleagues a few months ago, and we're just really excited about some of the things we heard and learned. So this is a chance for the larger group to learn about what's going on there. Before we get started with, oh, there's JR. JR, if you had gotten on earlier, we would have pegged you for a bad dad joke, but that's what happens when you get on late.
Why can't you hear pterodactyls going to the bathroom?
I don't know.
Because the P is silent.
Oh, geez, that's like a 5-year-old joke. All right, great. On that note, we are going to kick off our announcements and introductions. I want to start with what seems to me to be the elephant in the room, which is all the new announcements and orders and maneuvers that we're seeing out of the new presidential administration here in the United States. I will just say I don't know yet how this is going to impact the hydrogen scene. With regard to credits, with regard to funding, we have not received detailed guidance yet. So please don't ask me what's going to happen because I don't know yet. We just had our Secretary of Energy confirmed yesterday, Chris Wright, CEO of Liberty Energy. His first official day is tomorrow after he is sworn in today. So there is a flurry of activity in the department right now. And I'm very much hoping that once we have that leadership in place, we can get back on the bus and really move forward here. I'd also like to let folks know that I am still here. I am not going anywhere. Our office is limiting external engagements until we clarify priorities within the department, which is beholden to the administration. But I'm still available for one-on-one meetings, and I'm still doing my best to represent Arctic and Alaskans and our energy needs up here. So all of that is to say that I don't have a lot of answers right now, but I am still here and I will see this through. And our group is still very much alive here. And I'm very much looking forward to today's discussion and presentation, and it's great to see all of you. So Happy New Year if I didn't get a chance to say it to you previously. This is the part of our meeting where we have introductions of folks who may be new to the group or folks who may have been quiet in previous meetings. I really try to foster a friendly atmosphere here, a very courteous and collegial atmosphere here. And we love getting to know new folks and new faces and make new connections. So please, if you would like to introduce yourself or if you have an announcement that's relevant to the group, given the dynamic conditions that we're in, this is your chance to share that. So would anyone venture to be, would like to venture to be the first person to speak up?
I'm happy to join in if that's okay.
Please go ahead.
My name is John May, and I represent a company called Total Hydrogen Solutions out of Katy, Texas. And we basically are an integrator and constructor of hydrogen systems from putting in, and we're technology agnostic. So we use anything from generation side to compression, storage, fueling, mobile refueling systems to electrical generation with fuel cells or combustion engines, whatever, anything to do with hydrogen. So that's us.
Terrific. John, could I ask you to please put your contact information and maybe a link to your company website in the chat so that folks can
Sure.
connect with you, and Patty Egan, who makes everything happen behind the scenes, can add you to distribution lists and make sure that you get all of our information and materials. Thank you so much for joining us today. And where are you calling us from?
I actually live in Colorado, not in Texas, but I get around.
Excellent. Wonderful.
But
Well, we
hoping to make a trip up to Alaska sometime. I know it's on my wife's wish list, so hopefully I can combine a few things someday.
It's on your wife's wish list, not your wish list?
And mine as well. It's my last state in the country that I have not visited, so it's high on my list as well.
All right. Well, that sounds like you need to get cracking. So, all right, spring will be here soon. Some people think it's already here. Okay. Who else would like to introduce themselves? If you've been quiet, if you're new, or make an announcement. Don't be shy.
I'll jump in. Hi, everybody. I'm Derek Hansen. Just joined recently from Direct Solutions. We're a global transportation consulting firm with a number of hydrogen deployment projects. And I actually come from a fleet maintenance background. I was the fleet director at the city of Edmonton and deployed a number of hydrogen fuel cell and co-combustion dual fuel vehicles. And actually, I see a colleague from the area, Brodie Chalmers, presenting. So I'm excited to see him and join and observe from Canada. Today I'm in chilly Toronto.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much, Derek. Glad to have you on board. Can you please put your contact info and any other company info you are comfortable sharing in the chat? And I will leave it to folks to connect with you as they wish. Marianne, I see you've come off mute. Would you like to say something?
Sure. I've been attending this group for quite some time, Erin. Greatly appreciate your intro that you gave and support everything that you are doing for us here in Alaska. As honorary consul for Canada, I'm really excited about today's presentation and wanted to also add that I'm working on a couple of projects that are very significant in this area. The first is with a global e-fuels development project out of Chile. It's HIF Global. And then the other significant energy projects are the long duration energy storage project with Westinghouse, as well as the micro reactors for our remote communities and mining opportunities. So great to be here today. Looking forward to the presentation on hydrogen in Canada.
Thank you, Marianne. I know that many people know you, but for those who are new, would you mind putting your contact info in the chat, and any links to any of those projects that you just mentioned would be awesome.
Will do. Thank you.
And welcome. Bill, I see you come off mute. Would you like to regale the group here? No. All right. Bill's just joined. All right. Any other introductions? Doug, you look very comfortable there. Doug Johnson. Okay.
I would join. Can I join?
Yes, please speak up, Carl.
Okay. Yeah, okay. My name is Carl Salmon. I am an industrial designer, and currently I would like to make an announcement, especially when it comes to the possibility of extracting the hydrogen from the rocks. You remember sometime back in my first meeting, they talk about there's like hydrogen stores in the rock and so forth. And I think there's a possibility. I've been working on something pertaining to it in terms of extracting the hydrogen. And I am looking at a possible team with some members in terms of working going forward with this technology. but it's something I'm looking at since the first time I joined the group, and I think I got something going forward. It's just that I just need some more and create a team in terms of moving it forward. So that's the announcement I would like to make.
Terrific. And Carl, would you mind putting contact info in the chat? And where are you calling us from today, Carl?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. It's nice and warm outside, even though it's 22 degrees.
All right, great.
Okay.
Thanks. Yes,
Okay.
please put your
All right.
info in the chat so people can connect with you. Who else would like to speak up? You can either raise your hand physically or virtually.
Maybe I can go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mehdi. I'm assistant professor in power and energy system with Monash University from the other side of the world, Australia, in Melbourne. And with my team and I, we are very much engaged with the industry on hydrogen project, electrolysis plants, focusing on system integration of electrolysis plants in three key kind of area. The first one is the regional hydrogen hub that we have in Australia, off-grid mode of operation of electrolysis plant. The other one is about the grid connection and compliance studies for system operators. And the last one is the market integration, ancillary service market integration of electrolysis plants. So these are the three key areas that we focus on. And we are looking
Wonderful.
forward to this discussion.
Thank you. And I heard Australia, but I didn't catch the name of the university.
Monash is #1 university in engineering, 35 in the world, based in Melbourne.
Wonderful. And what time is it there?
7, almost 8 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. All right. That's very civilized. Thank you for joining us. Please put your contact info in the chat and any other links that would be useful for people to connect with you. Terrific. Thank you. Bill, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, Aaron and all. Does our agenda today include talking about the prospects for continued funding of the hydrogen projects, including the hydrogen hubs, the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, in the light of the new administration that's come to town? Thank you.
This is what happens when you join late, Bill, and I say that very lovingly. I made an announcement that a lot of things are dynamic and the situation is changing daily, and I don't have any specific guidance right now as to ramifications and consequences for hydrogen funding. So I can't give you any answers, but I am still here. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm still working hard on behalf of Alaskans in the Arctic. So I know that's a big fat nothing burger, but that's what I can give you right now.
I agree. It's best we defer that for a while until the smoke clears a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Gail, are you trying to get on here?
Yes. Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Gail Morrison. I'm a geographer at the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management here in Anchorage, Alaska, where it's about 15 degrees and the clouds are just clearing. The ice fog is lifting. I am on the Boehm Alaska Critical Minerals team. I am joining today because I wanted to see what everyone was doing on the hydrogen team. Also, I'm one of the co-leads for the Seascape Alaska Alternative Energy Data Team. So if you don't mind, I'd like to send out an invitation to a few members to see if they might like to present at our group meetings.
Yeah, do you have a link to that info or anything you can put up for folks?
All I have is just my email. Yeah,
okay.
The meetings are not recorded because of the NOAA stipulations. It's hosted by NOAA. Yeah.
Okay.
Michael,
when is the next meeting?
We have the next meeting is April 4th.
Okay.
April 4th.
And does the group have a website or anything like that
No.
you can look for more info? Okay.
No.
Well, maybe just put that blurb and the date in the chat so we have it on record, and we can follow up. You know, we can send your email address out with the notes That's a
Yeah.
note for Patty.
Yeah, Gail,
for
I'd
folks
like
to follow up.
I'd like to hear more about that.
That'd
Okay.
be great. Okay, I'll send you a separate email.
Okay. Do you want to just
Thank you.
say a few sentences about the group right now and what they're doing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So every 2 months or so, we invite someone from industry who is working on a project or has a project ongoing regarding non-fossil fuel energy development. I see that David Clark is on the call. He has provided us with an awesome presentation. HIF Global, Keith Myers has provided a great presentation. So we're trying to broaden the view of people in Alaska of just different energy alternatives. We had Andritz talk about their tidal turbine designs and potential implementation in Cook Inlet. That was awesome. There's a Cook Inlet Kenai Peninsula industry fair that might be spinning up. So I'd like to, if I can, invite people to that.
Okay.
It's going to be in April, I think.
Yeah. A good person to contact about the Kenai event is Cassidy Cameron with the Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District. And if you send me an email, Gail, I'll be happy to connect you with her. She's one of our Arctic Energy ambassadors, actually.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Awesome. Terrific. Please put
Thank
your
you.
email in the chat so folks can follow up, as well as maybe just a few bullets on these key points to jog everyone's memory. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Any other introductions or people who maybe have been quiet or announcements for the good of the group?
Hi, Aaron. I'll jump in here. Levi Kilcher. Just wanted to let everybody know that I am now with Deerstone Consulting. Of course, I was recently at the Arctic Energy Office with Aaron and had great time there. Really grateful for the work that we did together. But I moved on. I had an opportunity to work closer to the ground on projects in Alaska, and so I jumped at it. But I'm here just to kind of keep up with the group and stay plugged into hydrogen and clean energy technologies and what we're trying to do here. But if anybody wants to get in touch with me, I'll put my new email in the chat. And yeah, I guess the only thing I'll add is just that my departure happened sort of well before all the most recent news, so not an immediate outfall from recent events.
Yeah, thank you. We're super grateful for Levi's service. I don't think I've seen you with glasses before. Does that come with the new Deerstone gig?
I put off getting an eye exam for several years and finally went into the doctor and they're like, you need glasses. So here I am.
Huh. All right. I was going to say something about government or federal insurance, but we'll save that for another time. Okay. Other announcements, other introductions, other.
Hi, I'm Amelia Hernandez. I'm a project manager for the Power Systems Integration team here at ACEP. I've been kind of not attending these meetings, but following along what you guys are doing in the Hydrogen Working Group for a while now. And so this is my first meeting. So thanks for organizing this, Aaron.
Thank you, Amelia. It's great to see your face after getting some of your emails. I appreciate it. And Levi, Amelia, please put your deets in the chat there. Also, Gail, I don't see, or maybe you've put it in there already. Please enter that all in there.
I'm working on it.
Thank you. Yeah, no pressure. Okay, announcements, introductions. Anyone else? Don't be shy. It's a friendly group.
Hi, my name is Brian Crowley. I live in Oregon, and I've I'm looking for some projects to financially invest in. The larger, the better. If anybody has a business plan ready to go or an economic development plan, it doesn't really matter how big it is. I'd be interested in investing. I'll send my email in the chat.
That's quite an offer. Thank you, Brian. Other folks. Go ahead, Tim.
I dropped a couple of comments in the chat and just wanted to call folks' attention to that regarding that elephant in the room that Aaron, you mentioned at the beginning. I know there's a lot of noise out there, and so I found that court order that I believe was issued, I think this past Saturday, helped provide a fairly level assessment on the facts and the timeline in regards to the Unleashing Energy, American Energy Executive Order, and then the impact or the potential impact on the federal funding freeze, whether that was a broad freeze or a more narrow one, regarding the BIL and IRA funding. But either way, there's a temporary restraining order issued at this point. So there's a pause to the pause in disbursements, at least until further deliberation of the court after finding of facts and presentation of the facts.
Thank you. It's all a bit dizzying. Okay. Other folks, introductions, announcements. This is your chance.
I can jump in really fast. My name's Kristen. I am an Arctic Energy Transitions Research Fellow with ASAP as part of the Alaska Fellows Program. And hydrogen's part of what I'm looking into. So I'm excited to be here and learn. And this is my first time attending the working group meeting. So I'm excited to hear the presentation and the discussion.
Terrific. Welcome, Kristen, and please go ahead and put your info in the chat. Okay. Other introductions or announcements? This is your chance.
This is Bruce Kane. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you, Bruce. Go ahead.
Special Projects Manager with Auden Incorporated. I've been the acting land manager for a couple years, managed 1.5 million acres of land. And I've been drawing money down on ASAP from EPA and DOE all week, so it hasn't affected me.
Great. Bruce, it's wonderful to see you on the call. And for those who didn't catch it, that was the ATCO Corporation, which is one of our regional native corporations in Alaska. So welcome, Bruce. Great to see you. I'd love to meet you in person sometime. Justin, are you spinning up to say something there? No. Okay. You just popped on. Sorry. You can't do anything on this call, can you? All right. Anyone else? Introductions, announcements?
Hey, Erin, this is Pawan. I'm with Jacobs Engineering. I am actively involved on working on a couple of initiatives in Alaska. One is the utility modernization for the utility Chugach, and the other one is a native Alaskan tribe. So we are trying to help add decarbonization initiatives to their grid as well. So good to meet you all.
Thank you, Pavan. Can you please put your contact info in the chat as well as any relevant links there? And same goes for Bruce as well, to the extent you're comfortable sharing. Anyone else? Are there any other announcements before we transition to our speaker for today?
Yeah, I don't think so. If everything goes as planned, then we'll reconvene in March 4th. And we're looking forward to hearing both from David Clark and then the DTI Technologies, and no other announcements from me other than, yeah, always welcome presentation suggestions. Thanks.
Thank you. And for those who are new, Patty Egan manages all the behind the scenes details, the distribution list, the announcements. Message her directly if you're not already on our distribution list, or if you want information about how to access recordings of past meetings. All right. Well, if there are no further introductions or announcements, it is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Brodie Chalmers, who is a senior manager at ATCO Energy Systems in Canada. I am really excited about this presentation. There's some really terrific projects that ATCO is undertaking with regard to the hydrogen ecosystem in Canada. Brodie has been responsible for developing some of ATCO's most significant capital projects, including the Urban Pipeline Replacement Program and the Pioneer Pipeline acquisition, and has worked for several decades and has a deep knowledge of energy systems, especially with regard to hydrogen project development, and the pursuit of optimal pathways to energy system modernization. So, Brodie, we are excited to hear what you've got to share with us today, and the floor is yours to share slides and whatever else you've brought to our meeting today.
Okay. Well, thanks, Erin and Patty, for inviting ATCO and myself here today to present. As you said, I've worked for ATCO for over 20 years, and I've spent a significant amount of my time in the hydrogen space since about 2018. So really before hydrogen went through its sort of most recent hype cycle, and we're still in it today, and we still very much believe that hydrogen does have a significant role in our energy future. I'll open up my presentation here.
It looks good, and we can hear you just fine. So
excellent. All right. So, so this is largely a presentation about why hydrogen. And I know there's an awful lot of public commentary about hydrogen makes no sense. That hydrogen is a carbon problem rather than a carbon solution. And I mean, I have some sympathy for those arguments, but I think in our context here in Alberta, where I'm calling in from today, I'm specifically in Calgary, where it is currently about -13 Fahrenheit, about -25 Celsius. So some Alaska-like weather here today. Like hydrogen, there's a really strong case for hydrogen here in our geography. So I'll just walk everybody through that. So a little bit about ATCO. We are a gas and electric utility, the largest here in Alberta. We have about 2 million global customers. We have gas utilities both in Alberta as well as in Perth in Australia. We own and operate the gas distribution system there. We have power plants in a number of locations around the world. And we're probably best known for our modular structures business, which is really how the company started. So at work camps and construction sites all over the world, including in Alaska, there are, you may recognize ATCO trailers that are on those sites. We actually have quite a bit of experience in the north and strong connection to the north. We own and operate the electricity systems in Yellowknife and Whitehorse in the Northwest Territories and the Yukon. We also have a joint venture with an Inuit-owned company wherein we operate the early warning system, radar system across the north on behalf of NORAD. So we're involved in a lot of things around the world. I'm specifically in the gas business and the gas utility here in Alberta. So our gas business, we have about 40,000 kilometers of gas distribution pipe and about 10,000 kilometers of gas transmission pipe. We have a peak delivery of about 50 gigawatts on a cold day. That's about 32 gigawatts to our residential and commercial customers, and call it another 18 or so to our industrial customers. Peak demand in Alberta is closer to 110 gigawatts, inclusive of all industrial demand and power generation and all those sorts of things. We have a salt caverns facility just northeast of Edmonton, where we store about 800 gigawatt hours of natural gas, which we use for peak shaving purposes. So on the coolest of days, we withdraw from that facility to meet our peak demand requirement. So the big question that I'm hoping to address here today is why hydrogen? And I think, we really came to hydrogen in response to some of the ESG and environmental pressure that we've been facing in the last several years. I know you've alluded to some of the changes in the U.S. administration. That sort of policy environment may be changing, but certainly it's been pretty consistent here since at least 2015, when the Liberal government came into power. So we've seen the introduction of a significant and increasing carbon tax, which will reach $170 a ton by 2030 under our current federal framework. I suspect that carbon tax to be a significant political issue in our next election. So not clear whether it will last, but in any case, it exists today. And we do have in Canada, as you've seen in many places in the US, municipalities looking to do things like gas bans or kind of subtle gas bans by doing things like requiring heating appliances to operate at more than 100% efficiency. Investors are interested in companies reducing their carbon footprints and their environmental impact. Access to capital has been constrained in some respects if you're a high emitter and sort of profligate on your environmental record. And then, of course, one of the big advantages of hydrogen in all of this is that we can repurpose our existing assets, particularly our low pressure distribution assets. They're really entirely suitable for hydrogen. Material properties are acceptable at those low pressures. The pipe is approximately the right size. Although hydrogen is much less energy dense on a volumetric basis, it can travel much faster than natural gas for the same pressure drop, meaning that you can deliver roughly the same amount of energy through an existing pipe network as you transition to hydrogen. And then further, I think in Alberta specific story, we have incredibly low cost natural gas that we can convert into hydrogen and store the carbon. We already have the world's largest carbon capture and storage system here in Alberta today. It can do about 5 megatons a year, as is. And we can develop what we believe is a significant low carbon hydrogen production industry that can support both our domestic market and export markets as well, potentially. We actually today in Alberta produce more hydrogen on an energy basis than ATCO delivers to its natural gas customers annually. So this hydrogen is used for petrochemicals, for heavy oil upgrading, for refining, for fertilizer production. And so we already have a large hydrogen market. It's dirty hydrogen today. And the big opportunity is cleaning that hydrogen up. And a side benefit of all that new clean hydrogen production is that we can siphon a little bit of that off and move it into the natural gas system here in the province and dramatically reduce the emissions associated with space and water heating. So just a little bit of context on our particular location. Here in Alberta, we actually set a new record for gas and electricity deliveries last January, just over a year ago. Peak electric demand of 12,384 megawatts. On that same day, our gas distribution system provided about 32,000 megawatts as an hourly peak. And the gas storage system provided about 52,000 megawatts as an hourly average, inclusive of deliveries to industrial customers. So you can see that the total natural gas demand in the province is sort of an order of magnitude larger than the electricity generation. And even just gas distribution, so residential, commercial, space water heating is roughly triple total electricity generation. And so, you know, the idea that we're going to electrify space heating is not realistic here in Alberta. And I know you hear a lot about, well, heat pumps are really efficient, you don't need nearly as much energy, but the fact is you'd actually only reduce this peak demand by about 15%. Given that the fleet efficiency of furnaces is probably about 85%. And at 40 below, which is the type of temperatures we experienced last January, you are on backup resistive electric heating. You're not really operating your heat pump. And so your coefficient of performance is 1, which is really not a lot better than a natural gas furnace. So you're really not reducing peak demand particularly at all in our climate by moving to an electric system. That it has implications for the electric grid, namely that it really just can't handle the energy delivery requirement as is. So a little bit more on that cold snap we experienced last January. You can see here that, you know, much larger deliveries of natural gas than electricity, and that storage in Alberta actually provided a significant portion of that demand. And storage is not something you can do easily or cheaply with electricity. Despite the fact that costs are coming down significantly over time. So just a little bit more about our energy systems here in Alberta. Wind and solar, although we have a large wind fleet and a large and growing solar fleet, during periods of peak space heating demand, wind and solar are reliably absent. So we don't just say that they're intermittent, they're actually reliably absent. So you can see here wind capacity factor during periods of highest space heating demand has never been above about 7%. It's often 0. And I think the average is somewhere close to 4 or 5%. Solar is almost 0. You can get a little bit of a spike midday, but historically the data shows that solar is largely absent during those periods. And then if you're to say, okay, well, we'll store it from periods of high production, you can see that to meet 1 day of space and water heating in Alberta, you would need about 13 times of 2022 global lithium ion battery production for EVs. So that's 1 day. And then we have periods of extended cold weather that can last weeks. For example, in February of 2019, we went 3 weeks, never going above minus 20 Celsius, and with effectively no wind and solar for that entire 3-week period. So it's kind of a non-starter, honestly. So if decarbonization is a sort of a societal priority, then we need another way. And here in Alberta, the fact that we can make hydrogen in a low-cost way because of our very low-cost natural gas, our really amenable geology for CO2 storage, we do have a significant opportunity in hydrogen to reduce our emissions associated with space and water heating. So just delivery cost of energy here in Alberta roughly 4 cents a kilowatt hour for natural gas and roughly 20 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. And if you take average coefficient of performance of a heat pump here in Alberta is sort of between 2 and 2.5, so call it 2. You're still paying an awful lot more for electricity for space heating than you would be for natural gas. Hydrogen, we believe, can be delivered for significantly less than electricity, and this is primarily owing to the grid upgrades you need to facilitate peak demand, peak space heating demand on the electricity system. So what ends up happening if you try to electrify space heating in Alberta, you do this massive grid build out. I mean, roughly you're probably 10xing the installed rate base of the electricity system to accommodate that peak day, but you're only roughly doubling the annual usage. So you have far more cost to spread over a not much larger volume of sort of billing determinants. So it really dramatically increases your delivered cost of electricity. We've estimated probably getting close to 50 cents a kilowatt hour delivered, owing to all that grid reinforcement that's required to facilitate accommodation of peak demand. With hydrogen, we can just reuse the distribution system in large degree. The weak points will get weaker. We do have to do some looping, some reinforcement, but the costs are relatively modest. And because of the proximity of our systems to hydrogen production, we need to install very little new pipe to reach the demand. So just some of the projects we're involved in today. We are doing in collaboration with TC Energy evaluation of converting a transmission asset. So transmission is a little more difficult to convert from natural gas to hydrogen, owing to some metallurgical issues associated with higher pressure hydrogen and steels. But that's really what this study has been commissioned to address. We're working on large scale blending in the Edmonton region. So we've got, say, roughly 500,000 customers in the Edmonton region. That we're proposing to put a 20% hydrogen blend into those customers when and if we get some legislation change that would allow us to do so. We're working with a number of pyrolysis vendors. So pyrolysis is basically cracking methane CH4 into C and 2H2 or hydrogen, and using the hydrogen, and oftentimes the carbon has useful end uses as well. Bremner is a community that we are partnering on. I'll get into it a little bit later. Home One is a pure hydrogen home that I'll talk about in a future slide as well. And then I think probably the rest of these I also have slides on, so I'll just quickly run through all of this. So this was our first foray into the hydrogen space. This is a community in northwest or northeast of Edmonton, approximately 2,100 customers, mostly residential. There's some commercial and there's one school. We're currently blending 5% hydrogen into that gas distribution system with really no noticeable impact on any of the customers. And we do intend in 2025 to increase that blend to 20%. We've done lots of testing and have found that, again, at 20%, no discernible impact on performance or customer experience. We have what we're calling the Energy Discovery Center, where we've got a whole bunch of different hydrogen technologies on site. So you can see in the middle, there is an electrolyzer. That electrolyzer is providing the hydrogen for the blending project that I just talked about. The reason for the electrolyzer is that there's just not a lot of the low carbon natural gas derived hydrogen. Those projects are currently under construction and not yet available to source hydrogen from. And so at this time, we've used an electrolyzer to sort of prove out the safety case and demonstrate feasibility and all those sorts of things. Over on the right side, you can see that's where we're physically blending hydrogen into the natural gas distribution network. And then on the left is a pyrolysis plant, a pilot pyrolysis plant. Really, it's a technology that evolved out of the University of British Columbia. It's now a company called VulcanX. Early days for them, but they are piloting their technology there on our site. We've worked with a Calgary company to develop, really to convert their existing natural gas combi furnace into a hydrogen appliance. So this is a single box that does space heating, like forced air, natural gas space heating, as well as on-demand water heating. And so we've worked with them to convert this unit to operate on pure hydrogen. And they're working now on a conversion kit whereby you could install this thing for natural gas, and then down the road in like 10 minutes or so, you could swap a few parts and have it converted over to hydrogen. So we're using a number of these in our Energy Discovery Center. And it works really well. We're quite pleased with this unit. It's made by Gradient Thermal is the name of the company. This is the Energy Discovery Center. Again, it's that building on that site. What we have is a number of bays where different appliances and technologies can be plugged in. Each of these bays has a natural gas connection, a hydrogen connection. There's an electrical outlet, and there's also like a hydronic heating loop. So there's a whole bunch of different energy systems in here that we can go back and forth on. But this is actually North America's first commercial building heated on 100% hydrogen. You can see in the bottom left corner a number of those Gradient units that I referenced in the previous slide that are providing the space heating for space and water heating for this building. So there will be things like hydrogen stoves and cooktops and different hydrogen appliances and things that will be, and you can see a fireplace there in the background, that will be installed and demonstrated and tested, and just kind of proving out that this is real and it's not, some hypothetical thing. This is home one. This is a show home in Sherwood Park, which is a community east of Edmonton. This home is heated on 100% pure hydrogen. Again, using a Gradient combi furnace. And we tank the hydrogen in today just because of its location, and it's really just a pilot demonstration project, but operating smoothly. We're pleased with how everything's turned out. So you'll hear a lot about, oh, you need these giant holes in the envelope of the building to ventilate it when you're using pure hydrogen, and it's just not true. There is actually a safety code in Canada. It's actually out of Quebec that specifies the requirements for hydrogen within buildings, and we've used that code to design this building. And I think a big part of this is demonstrating that this is functional, safe, and is a viable solution for the future. So our non-utility business, we actually do have a partnership right now with Linde, which is the largest hydrogen company in the world. And they are actually building a hydrogen production facility to support Dow, who's building the world's first net zero petrochemical production. It's really plastics production here in Alberta. It's roughly a $10 billion project. And we are working with Linde to help them advance that project and potentially move hydrogen into the distribution system. There are other low carbon hydrogen producers, and so that will be acquired through sort of a competitive process, but our sister company is working directly with Linde on this project, including the Atlas Carbon Sequestration Hub, which is in development. It's in addition to 2 other carbon storage projects that exist today. Shell has the Quest project, and then there's the Alberta Carbon Trunk Line, which is actually, carbon trunk line is actually used for enhanced oil production, but in the end, the CO2 will be stored. And then Quest is a pure storage play. Has been in operation, Quest's been in operation for probably a decade nearly, and it's working perfectly well. In fact, better than projected. And then the other thing our non-reg company is doing is working with CPKC, one of the largest rail companies in North America. We have installed electrolyzers for them, both in Calgary and Edmonton. They were first just using the hydrogen on one of their locomotives to shuttle freight around in their yards, but they're now doing longer haul trips with these diesel. They were diesel electric locomotives, but they've actually in-house converted these to being hydrogen electric. And so they're doing like the Calgary Edmonton route now, and plans to do longer routes here in the near future. And they're really quite happy with these units. So moving forward, this is more of a policy slide, but I mean, you may or may not be aware, but Alberta is really the home of the oil sands. And, we are by far the largest oil and gas producer in the country. I think we probably export close to 4.5 million barrels of oil a day into the US. And, the oil sands, I would say, really developed due to an awful lot of government support for technology development. And helping the technology evolve to the point where it was commercial, and to the point where costs could come down, and to the point where oil sands could become competitive. And you do hear a lot about how the oil sands will be the first to go if prices collapse in a low carbon future. And I think we were able to show during the COVID downturn that's really just not the case, that oil sands producers have become so efficient that they can compete with some of the lowest cost plays in North America, because you spend all the money up front, but then it's just manufacturing, and ongoing costs are actually really low, particularly once you've paid down your initial capital investment. For us to move hydrogen forward here in Alberta, we have 2 big issues. Hydrogen, so we're governed by the Gas Utility Act and the Gas Distribution Act. In these acts, hydrogen is not defined as a gas, so we really have no ability to work with it and invest in hydrogen carrying infrastructure and recover those costs from customers. So it's just something we can't do today. Everything we've done to date has been really through grants, through competitive processes where we've applied and received funding, and or through effectively shareholder dollars. But we felt it was necessary to do this to prove the case for hydrogen, which we believe we've now done in our jurisdiction specifically. And then our commission needs to be given some reason to consider climate impacts when it's considering project applications. Today, they are largely a cost regulator, and climate impacts are not necessarily in their mandate to consider when utilities are proposing investment. So we're hopeful these changes will be made this year. We understand that it is in process, but I guess fingers crossed. And then, of course, I think the story is pretty relevant in Alaska as well. I mean, I know there's an old LNG export facility in Anchorage, used to be ConocoPhillips. You're probably similarly located in terms of proximity to large both natural gas and prospective hydrogen import markets in Asia. So, we believe there can be a significant opportunity to export low carbon hydrogen, likely in the form of ammonia, at some point in the future. This story was probably stronger a couple of years ago than it is today, but it's still something that we're interested in. So, and I think that's all I have for today. So happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Brodie. That was fascinating, and I hope others are as excited about some of this material as I am. This is our chance to have some questions and discussion. One of the questions I'm seeing in the chat, Brodie, is about this 20% blend and how do you know it's safe, in the long term? Do you have to limit pressure or pressure fluctuations? Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah. So there have been over 300 blending demonstrations globally to date. We have actually quite an extensive appliance testing program that we've done in partnership with really all the gas utilities across Canada. We've been sending a whole fleet of appliances to a lab in the Netherlands for testing. And we have yet to encounter a performance issue. We've also had a number of our executives have had 20% blends, actually above 20% blends, going into their own personal homes for extended periods with really no issues. And really, there's also a great deal of research out there showing that at very low pressures, like we operate the distribution system at. So for one thing, the distribution system is almost entirely made of polyethylene or plastic. There's very little steel left in our system. And so, hydrogen has been shown to be entirely compatible with polyethylene. And even with steels at very, very low pressures, there's just simply not enough partial pressure to sort of force the hydrogen into the H2 into molecular hydrogen to push it into the steel structure and sort of begin that embrittlement. And then further, the pressure is so low that any crack that might occur in that steel structure it really just can't propagate at the pressures that the system operates at. So we're talking under 100 psi here for distribution systems. And like in Calgary, we operate at 60 psi, in Edmonton at 80 psi. These are just very, very, very low pressures where the risks associated with the introduction of hydrogen are very, very low.
Thank you. Okay. Another question in the chat here is, what was the gain you were trying to get by blending hydrogen?
Yeah, so you might say, well, look, the CO2 emissions reduction associated with blending hydrogen is low. I would agree with you. A 20% hydrogen blend will reduce end-use emissions by about 7%, just given that you need to increase the volumetric flow rate when you have hydrogen in the mix. But we will reduce emissions in aggregate because of the amount of gas we deliver. We would be reducing something like 300,000 tons a year by the end of our blending program in the north. And then beyond that, what we've seen in the low carbon hydrogen space is that there's a real chicken and egg problem where hydrogen producers need stable offtake to underpin their investments, and prospective hydrogen end users need reliable low carbon hydrogen supply in order to justify some of the conversions and things that they would like to do. And in our view, utility blending justifies and underpins investment in some of that low carbon hydrogen production. It justifies construction of a hydrogen delivery network, which gives prospective hydrogen users access to hydrogen. And it enables new communities to use pure hydrogen rather than blended hydrogen. So for us, it's all about getting that pipeline infrastructure in place, which in our opinion makes hydrogen much more accessible and really reduces the cost, because delivery in a pipe is very cost effective.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to leave the chat questions for a minute, but I promise I'll come back to them. I see
Sure.
a hand up there. Either Patty or Paul must have a question.
Hey, yeah, this is Paul McKinley. Brodie, thanks a lot for your presentation. Really appreciate
Sure.
it. So, I mean, you talk about the chicken and the egg problem here. I think like many would agree that people who work in pipelines and distribution infrastructure are kind of a key component for solving that issue. But you guys also are kind of doing stress testing on production as well as end use.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, on just a performance comparison basis, how do you see the prospects forming for hydrogen end use? I mean, in this case, you know, how do these thermal hydrogen furnaces compare to the standard gas appliances that people have in their homes? Similarly, for your production, I mean, you guys are using electrolysis and maybe pyrolysis. How is that comparing on an efficiency and cost basis to just steam methane reforming without carbon capture?
Yeah, we don't see a viable path long term for electrolysis, certainly in our jurisdiction. I mean, your hydrogen is always going to cost more than the electricity you use to make it. Further, our grid here in Alberta, I mean, it's not the dirtiest grid, but it's not particularly clean either. It's largely gas fired, and so we see not even SMR, but we see autothermal reforming as being the low carbon hydrogen production pathway that will make most sense in our jurisdiction. We anticipate costs from ATR to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 to $2.50 per kilogram. Some have forecast even less than $2, but that compares to $6-7 probably for electrolysis produced hydrogen. Like, they're just not in the same ballpark. Advantage of ATR is that it's like oxy-fired, right? You got an air separation plant out front, and you're putting pure oxygen in. And so you really eliminate that flue gas stream. Flue gas stream has a really low CO2 concentration, so it's hard to capture that carbon. Whereas in ATR, because of the oxy-fired combustion, you have very pure CO2, which is fairly easy to capture. And you still have your water gas shift, which carbon's pretty easy to capture from there. But using ATR allows you to get to 95% plus carbon capture relatively cost effectively. So that's the pathway we see. Lindy is building an ATR in support of the Dow project. Air Products is actually building a large low carbon ATR in support of a couple of other projects. There's a large biodiesel facility that's going in that's going to use a bunch of their hydrogen, and there's some that they're still, I think, marketing. So that's the pathway we see. Our electrolyzer was really just, we needed hydrogen so that we could demonstrate the safety case, and so electrolysis was the simple path to that at the time, but I don't think we see it being a big part of the future. Pyrolysis has potential to be very, very cost effective. I think the issue is that got to figure out how to deal with all the carbon, because it will quickly flood the market for carbon black today. Carbon black's used in things like asphalt and tires and printer ink and things like this. That market would be quickly flooded, but there's a number of developers, including some here in Alberta, that are trying to make like anode grade carbon for like lithium ion batteries as a byproduct. So there's others that are trying to make like structural carbon fiber sort of quality byproduct. So there's a bunch of investigation happening on how you might be able to sort of valorize that carbon byproduct as well as the hydrogen. You know, I think the biggest challenge with pyrolysis is really that, like, if you can't, you need like 2 GJs of natural gas to make a GJ of hydrogen through pyrolysis, right? It's not that efficient on an energy basis. So unless you can do something useful with the carbon, becomes a little challenged that way. But very little in the way of atmospheric carbon emissions. And the hydrogen itself can be really quite low cost. So.
Thank you. Another question in the chat. Can you say again what the plan is for storing 300,000 tons of hydrogen?
Yeah. So we have already a number of CO2 pipelines and carbon storage reservoirs in the province. And the Alberta Geological Survey has estimated the you know, the amount of carbon storage available in the province. And I mean, it's hundreds of years of carbon storage available, even at like an economy-wide level. You know, the cost of carbon capture and storage has become really quite competitive. I think Shell was saying that their Quest project, it's roughly $30 a ton. So significantly less than even the carbon taxes today. Yeah, carbon capture and storage, we're doing it. It works well. I mean, quite frankly, we've been doing carbon storage here in Alberta since the 80s with what we call acid gas injection. So this is like natural gas production with a whole bunch of H2S, which is a deadly chemical. And so we have gas processing plants that remove the H2S, but there's also a lot of CO2 in there. So we've been injecting this mixture of H2S and CO2 into formation since the 80s. And no one really knows about it, which is a good thing because it just means that it's working. And so, you know, just storing pure carbon is actually easier than that.
Okay, thanks. Another question is whether you've tried to make this 20% blending limit variable or if it's fixed, given, you know, the time varying nature of gas network and demand.
Yeah, you can go down to 0 without any issue. The 20% limit is really driven by appliance performance. So natural gas appliance performance. You can get some issues with a phenomenon called flashback, where the flame can kind of migrate back into the burner. And it can damage the appliance. It's not as much a safety issue as it is an appliance performance and longevity issue. Yeah, that's honestly is the main issue with, and the reason for the 20% limit is that you do get these appliance performance issues. But that number can actually increase quite a bit beyond 20 because a lot of it has to do with the Wabi index. So if you have very wet natural gas with, you know, a bunch of ethane and propane in it, as you blend hydrogen into that, your Wabi index stays within acceptable bounds for up to a much higher limit of hydrogen. So it can be a little bit system dependent, but at 20%, we're comfortable that any of our systems can handle that without any real difficulty. But certainly, if it was a really cold day and I don't know, the hydrogen system wasn't up and running, we could happily just deliver pure natural gas without issue.
So you can temporarily vary it, is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah,
Okay.
it's no problem. Yeah.
Okay. Here's a question you may or may not know the answer to. How much does it cost to build port infrastructure to ship energy to Asia?
Yeah, I can't comment on that, and I think it would depend a lot on how the hydrogen was transported. I mean, we've got obviously got a lot of big ports on the West Coast in Prince Rupert and in Vancouver, and then the big LNG facility going in Kitimat. So the port stuff I can't really comment on. Obviously, if you were doing like liquefied hydrogen, that would be very expensive just because you have to get almost to absolute zero to liquefy hydrogen. So ammonia is probably more likely, but yeah, I can't comment at all on the cost.
Okay, thank you. With regard to Alberta regulators not having a way to adequately assess costs and benefits of hydrogen relative to natural gas, the question is whether the carbon tax is levied on natural gas, and if it is it not capturing the range of costs that you think would be helpful?
Yeah, so the carbon tax is applied to natural gas, and it's significant. It's actually a multiple of the commodity cost itself as it stands today. So natural gas in Alberta is selling for, I don't know, we'll call it $2 a GJ, $2 an MMBTU. Carbon tax by 2030, if it actually gets there, be about $8.70 a GJ. So more than 4 times the cost of the gas itself. But we have looked into what it would cost to build so we do have to build about, in Edmonton, for instance, we have to build about 100 kilometers of hydrogen transmission pipe to blend into the distribution system, because we're not 100% confident on converting natural gas transmission, high pressure infrastructure to hydrogen. We've chosen to build new. And then hydrogen is just, itself is more costly than natural gas. And so we've estimated that, probably the costs associated with our proposal are in that sort of $150 a ton neighborhood. So the carbon tax just hasn't quite caught up to our proposal yet. So I think that's really the main issue.
Okay. Thank you. What size electrolyzer did you use? Maybe
1 megawatt.
1 megawatt. Okay.
Yeah.
And Don, did you want to append your question from earlier about hydrogen storage?
Yeah, Brodie, thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, your one slide said production and storage.
Yeah.
You referred to 300,000 tons of hydrogen. Just wondering what the plan is for storing 300,000 tons of hydrogen.
Yeah, so I think our hydrogen production is 300,000 tons a year. A lot of that would just be used directly, but we actually have a large salt formation northeast of Edmonton. We today own, I think, 6 natural gas caverns and 6 other hydrocarbon caverns. So there's like ethylene, propane, butane. And we are strongly of the belief that we can store hydrogen in that salt formation as well. And we actually have a pilot underway. Now that's being done by our non-reg entity, so I can't really comment on the results, but as I understand it, it has been a success and has shown that we can store hydrogen in that salt formation. And I think we can store about per cavern roughly 1 million kilograms of hydrogen. So I mean it's a lot of energy in one of those caverns.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Another question from Mady. Is the electrolyzer in flexible mode of operation, or is it just supplied by a constant power and electricity for hydrogen production?
Yeah, it's flexible. But I will say, like, the electrolyzer, we're not hasn't been a wonderful experience. It's pretty maintenance intensive, and but yeah, it is in flexible operation.
Great. And our geologic hydrogen representative, Mark Myers, wants to know, what about geologic hydrogen, such as the discovery in Saskatchewan, as a potential source?
Yeah, it is a big opportunity. There are a number of geologic hydrogen explorers out there. There's even a company here in Alberta that was looking at doing downhole pyrolysis of hydrocarbon reservoirs, and then using a membrane technology to basically hold the CO2 down and let the hydrogen permeate through and capture hydrogen at the wellhead. And they have a pilot project underway. I don't really know the outcome of that pilot. But yeah, certainly geologic hydrogen is a huge opportunity. It hasn't been, it's just early days, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks. And someone would also like to get some elaboration on the maintenance issues with the electrolyzer, if you're able to share that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really on that operational side, so I can't say too much about it. But I mean, one of the things I do hear a lot is that, make sure your water is extraordinarily clean, really highly filtered, really pure. And then, there's obviously some other issues related to just the cold weather and that kind of thing that have, water in 40 below freezes pretty quickly. So there's some things like that that also have to be managed.
Thank you. Thank you. That's it with the questions in the chat. I invite folks to virtually raise your hands if you have questions you want to ask yourselves. Bill, go ahead. We're not hearing you yet, Bill, if you're trying to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Brodie, thank you very much. Great presentation. I asked a question about pipelining blended hydrogen. I was at the phase 2 rollout kickoff meeting for the High Blend project done by the DOE National Labs about a year ago. Are you tracking that? There seems to be real concern among the gas utilities in this country, at least, especially transmission in extant steel pipelines at high pressure and variable pressure that we're going to encounter in California, for example, with wind and hydrogen input. And so they've got a $15 or $50 million study going on for multiple years to figure out whether in the long term, this is a long-term problem, as I understand it. It takes a while for those hydrogen molecules to turn to atoms, to turn to protons, to find the cracks, to make them propagate. So what seems to be safe this year may not be 5 years from now. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned that we do follow High Blend. We are in contact with a lot of the gas utilities in California, SDG&E, SoCal Gas, and PG&E. We do follow along with the work that they are doing down there, including the UC Riverside study that was completed, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And I think, we don't dispute that there may be challenges in transmission, which is why we've actually proposed to build new for-purpose hydrogen transmission to facilitate our project. I mean, we have this, we're just sort of, I guess, fortunate that we have large-scale hydrogen production almost immediately adjacent to some of our largest markets. So we don't need very much new pipe to do what we're proposing to do. And there's lots of pure hydrogen pipe in service today, including about 100 kilometers of it here in Alberta. Air Products actually has a pure hydrogen transmission system. It's been in operation for, I'm going to say 15 years or more. And in much longer in the Gulf Coast. So as long as you're designing your pipeline system for your hydrogen transmission system for pure hydrogen is perfectly workable. So, and then of course, we're following along with the research around conversion of transmission assets. And if it turns out that there's a pathway to doing so, then obviously that would just reduce the cost of our proposal as it stands.
Brodie, I understand that those extant pipelines used by the major industrial gas companies in those refinery corridors are generally operated at low and constant pressure, maybe only 50 bar instead of 150 bar. And they're made of low alloy steel and it's a very thick wall. So it would be very expensive to build that as a transmission pipeline for high pressure, high volume over very long distances. There's also the possibility, I understand, of what's called pull-in rehab, where given an extant pipeline, maybe 20 to 36 diameter, you could pull into it a novel kind of line pipe, perhaps a polymer non-ferrous metal hybrid. Are you folks looking into that? Do you have an R&D program to develop such kind of novel line pipe?
Yeah, we've actually talked to a number of vendors who have different insertion solutions. And it's certainly a possibility for very long pipes with not a lot of connections. But if you do get into systems like we have in sort of more urban areas with a lot of T connections and valves and various things like this, it becomes a little more challenging because you end up with an awful lot of excavation to manage it. You're right that the pipeline systems are, well, they're relatively thick walled. They are mild steels, so they're not high strength steels, but they do operate at high pressure. So I think the Air Products system here in Alberta operates at something like 6,000 kPa, which is more than enough. Sorry, I'm speaking in metric, but I guess you divide that by 7. So like call it 1,000 PSI roughly. Is more than enough pressure for what we need to do what we're proposing. I think we can, at sort of 4 to 5,000 kPa and a 10-inch pipe, we can do everything that we want to do in the Edmonton region. So.
Thank you.
But those nat gas transmission pipelines are typically 36-inch diameter or even bigger, and X65 to X70, aren't they? So that's alloy steel, and that's more vulnerable to hydrogen.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And so, I mean, I'm speaking specifically to our large scale blending project and the prospective sort of community development. So, I mean, we're not at this time anyway looking at a energy system wide conversion to hydrogen here in Alberta. I mean, it's sort of more baby steps, I would say.
Right.
And so for the proposal that we've got in place, certainly in the Edmonton region, 10 to 12 inch is suitable. We would build that new. And yeah, I mean, a lot of our base assumption is that large diameter, high pressure X60, X70 steel, we wouldn't reuse for hydrogen. But that's not really the prize for us anyway, because there's 10,000 kilometers of that, but we have, 40, 50,000 kilometers of the low pressure stuff that's in these developed communities that it's that distribution pipe that's the prize from our perspective, more so than the transmission. We can build transmission if we need to.
Great, thank you. Very helpful.
You're welcome. Yeah.
And another question from the chat: what is the electrolyzer technology, PEM or alkaline?
Gosh, I would have to talk to our projects people about that. I mean, it's a plug power unit. So I'm sorry, I should be able to answer that question, but I can't off the top of my head.
Okay. Other questions from folks in person? We've got just a few minutes left here. Jamie Holiday comments from Pacific Northwest National Lab that Plug Power is primarily PEM. Okay. Bill, I see your hand up. I just want to see if anyone else wants to ask a question first, since you've had about some time already. I'm going to ask this question in the chat here. For consumer products that were tested, was the original heat exchanger replaced?
No.
Okay.
No, not for the blends. I mean, quite frankly, we didn't see any issues with those consumer products up to, you know, 40, 50%. But yeah, they were just standard CSA certified appliances that we just put in service. And I mean, it's important to note that, I mean, Hawaii has been running on, you know, 12% hydrogen for 40 years. So it's certainly not a new thing for appliances.
Okay, thanks. Bill, do you have a final quick question that we can ask in the remaining few minutes?
Yes, Brodie, I asked a question earlier in the chat. Your friends there in Calgary, the Ever company,
are
apparently making good progress in boring deep enough, cheap enough to access deep, hot, dry rock geothermal, which is ubiquitous. The last thing we want to do is move hydrogen around or store it. So wouldn't it be great if we could make hydrogen exactly where we need to use it? Are you following their progress? And if they can get electricity at the surface for 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour, make hydrogen where we need it instead of moving it around. Are you following those folks?
Yeah, we're quite familiar with Ever, and they've had some excellent success. I mean, most recently, I think in Germany, and I think it's certainly an exciting development, and something we're watching. But again, you know, not something that's yet been, I guess, deployed at scale. But something we're watching, and certainly something we're interested in.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, well, thank you, Brodie. I think you touched a nerve. Lots of questions from this group. Really appreciate your time sharing this information with us today. And thank you again.
Okay.
So we will distribute recordings of these presentations or of this presentation today for folks who want to see it afterwards, or for anyone who wasn't able to attend. We thank you all for coming. We remind everyone that the next meeting will be March 4th, and we'll have a presentation from Diesel Tech Industries about hydrogen diesel systems, another Canadian company, also based out of Edmonton, I believe. So pretty excited about that. Patty, do we have any final announcements before we log off?
Nope, none for me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Another great meeting. We'll see you in a month. And until then, hope stay well and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Thank you.